Today we're going to begin our statistics unit. So we're going to begin by talking about what is statistics. So statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, presenting, analyzing, and interpreting numerical data to assist in making more effective decisions. So there are three types of ways that we are going to represent data, three different types of graphs. And so the first is what we call a dot plot. The second is what we call a box and whisker plot. And the third is what we call a histogram. So we have two types of data. We have categorical data and we have quantitative data. So categorical data is basically like categories. So this might be your class in school, like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. This could be your favorite color. Or your favorite sport. Could you put this data in the calculator? No, because this data is not going to be like a number value. It's basically just going to be words, with the exception of one thing, and that being year. Year is always going to go into the categorical data. Quantitative data would be numerical data. So this could be your GPA. This could be your height. This could be your number of siblings. Could you put this data in the calculator? Yes, because this is going to be data that has a number value. So we have three different ways that we measure the center of our data. One way is by the mean. You are probably more familiar with calling it the average. The symbol on the calculator for mean would be what we call X bar. Median is going to be the middle value. The important part about that is that everything must be in least to greatest order. The symbol on the calculator for that is going to just say MED. The mode is going to be the value that occurs the most. And there's actually not a symbol on the calculator for mode. If I had a set of data like 2, 5, 5, and 8, and I wanted to find the mean, I would do 2 plus 5 plus 5 plus 8 and divide it by the number of terms that I have, which is 4. So I would say 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 5 is 12, plus 4 is 20, and divide that by 4, so my mean would be 5. If I was doing the median, that would be the middle value. Because I have 4 numbers, I would go and find the number that was between the second and the third number. Because my second and third number are the same, my middle value would be 5. The value that occurs the most in my set would also be 5 because it shows up 2 times, and 2 and 8 only show up once. For measures of spread, I have 2 that we worry about for this class, so that would be range and standard deviation. So the range is going to be my highest value minus my lowest value. So there's not a button on the calculator that gives me my range, but it does tell me what my max is, and it does tell me what my min is. So my max being my highest, my min being my lowest. So I would do max minus min to be able to find out what my range is. Standard deviation is one that you may not be as familiar with. So the standard deviation is how close the data is clustered around the median. And there are actually 2 symbols for standard deviation on our calculator. There's one that kind of looks like a cursive O, which we call sigma. And there's one that's just an S with a little X at the bottom. The sigma stands for if we have a population, and the S stands for if we have a sample. So you may be curious about the difference between a population and a sample. So a population would be like if we were taking a survey of East High School. Every single person that goes to East High School is part of the population of East High School. So if we surveyed everyone and we included everyone's response, that would be a population. So we would use the sigma standard deviation. If we surveyed every single person in East High School, but we only looked at the answers that were given to us from, say, Miss Ferguson's second period, that is an example of a sample. So if we were finding a standard deviation for the responses for Miss Ferguson's second period, then we would use the S sub x standard deviation on our calculator. Ways to represent data. So the first way we're going to talk about is a dot plot. You may hear it referred to also as a line plot. So a dot plot is basically going to be a horizontal line that's got dots that are stacked on top of each other. So your horizontal line will have numbers or categories. And then the people that responded with these particular values would be counted and represented as dots. So for this particular example, we have, say this is the number of siblings. We would have 2 people that responded with only having 1 sibling, 3 people that responded with having 2 siblings, 1 person has 3, and 1 person has 4. So altogether, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in our sample. A histogram is going to have an L shape. At the bottom, you'll have some sort of category. So say it's favorite class. On the side, you would have number values. Say that you had 3 people that said that math was their favorite. And then 2 people said that science was their favorite. And then 1 person said that English was their favorite. So with a histogram, your information is represented in columns, and what's important about those is that they are all touching. A box and whisker plot is going to have a box that's in the center. This box is going to be important because it's going to show you things like the median, and it's going to show you what we call Q1 and Q3. So this is the median, this is Q1 and Q3. Q1 is going to represent the first quartile, and Q3 is going to represent the third quartile. You'll also have what we call whiskers. So your whiskers will extend out to your lowest on the left and your highest on the right. More important statistics vocabulary. Your minimum is going to be your lowest point. On the calculator, they call it min. Your maximum is going to be your highest point. Your calculator will call it max. Your Q1 is your first quartile. It will represent 25% of the data, and your calculator will call it Q1. Your Q3 is your third quartile. It's going to represent 75% of the data. And your calculator is going to call it Q3. So what your box and whisker plot does is it splits your data into equal portions. So from here to your Q1, from your lowest point, your minimum to your Q1 is 25%. Your Q1 to your median is going to account for another 25%. Your median to your Q3 is another 25%. And then your Q3 to your highest point is another 25%. So at Q3, you've already taken up 25, 25, and 25, which is 75% of the data. Your interquartile range is going to be basically the distance in your box. So it's going to be your Q3 minus your Q1. So there's actually not a symbol on your calculator, but they do give you Q1 and Q3, so you can easily figure out what your interquartile range is. A lot of times you'll hear interquartile range referred to as IQR. Any outlier is going to be an extremely high or low point. And there is not a button on your calculator for outlier as well.